The events of Demon Slayer take place in Japan of the Taisho era. The main character is a teenage boy named Tanjiro Kumada who lives on a mountain with 3 brothers, 2 sisters, and his mother. He goes to town to sell coal and make money. On the way, he meets his little sister Nezuka, who lulls baby Rakota to sleep, and then continues his journey. He returns late at night, passing near the house of his grandfather Sobo, where his grandfather, worried about the safety of Tanjiro, recommends that he spend the night at his place. As at night, the demons come out to hunt at morning, Tanjiro goes home and finds a terrible picture. His entire family has been murdered. Only his younger sister Nezuko is left alive. Tanjiro grabs her and runs into town to rescue her. However, Nezuko starts to turn into a demon and they fall off the cliff. Nezuko starts to attack Tanjiro violently and even increase the size of her body. However, Tanjiro manages to shout to Nezuko's mind and stop her. After the demon hunter Tamiyoko Gyu appears, Tamiyoko captures Nezuko. The hunter thinks that Tanjiro's family was killed by Nezuko. However, Tanjiro tells him that it was not her as she was wounded, but her hands and lips were not covered in blood, and also Tanjiro could smell the strong odor of another demon. Tanjiro promises that he will find a way to turn Nezuko back into a human. Tamiyoko understands Tanjiro's feeling. However, when fighting demons you can't give slack. He plans to decapitate Nezuko. Tanjiro tries his best to stop him. He combines an axe stone attack and surprises the hunter with it, but Tamiyoko knocks Tanjiro out while Nezuko breaks out, and instead of trying to bite anyone, he stands up for his brother. Then they fight Tamiyoko. However, he also knocks out Nezuko. When Tanjiro comes to his senses, he sees a protective bamboo seal on Nezuko, and also Tomioka tells Tanjiro and Nezuko to go to his teacher Sakonji Urokodaki for help. Tamiyoko also warns that demons can't stand sunlight. Tanjiro buries his family and then buys a broken basket, which he reinforces with bamboo, and then places Nezuko in it, and they set off on a journey to Mount Sagiri. On the way, they find a temple where they meet an ogre demon that catches Tanjiro by the throat, but Nezuko kicks open the demon's head. Next, the demon's head fights Tanjiro and the body fights Nezuko. Eventually, the demon's body, they are thrown off a cliff and the head is nailed to a tree with an axe. Then appears a man in a Tengo mask, who turns out to be Sakonjo Urokodaki. He says that a simple knife demon cannot kill them, can be killed by sunlight, or a blade Nichiren, which have demon hunters. Then the sun rises and the demon is burned, and Nezuko hides in his basket. Urokodaki decides to see if Tanjiro can become a member of the squad of demon killers. They go to a mountain, where Urokodaki tells Tanjiro to get down the mountain before morning. It turns out that the entire mountain is littered with traps, and Tanjiro has a hard time getting past all the traps, so Urokodaki takes him on as an apprentice. He also tells about the demon assassination squad to join the squad. You must survive the final selection on Mount Fujikasana, and it is up to Urokodaki to decide if you are allowed to participate. Tanjiro begins daily training to descend the mountain, and he keeps a diary for Nezuko. Urokodaki teaches him ball handling and proper breathing, in the process requiring Tanjiro to become one with the water. As a result, Tanjiro's training lasts for an entire year, and Nezuko is unconscious the entire time. Now, in order to gain access to the final selection, Tanjiro must chop a giant rock. He continues his training day after day, trying to chop that rock. However, even after 6 months, he is unable to do so. A man in a fox mask named Sabato appears, who offers Tanjiro to fight against his wooden ball. Tanjiro loses. Then a girl named Makomo appears and tells him about the actions of breathing techniques. Tanjiro trains for another 6 months, and then calls Sabato to a duel, where he begins to see threads that allow him to break Sabato's mask. After, Makomo and Sabato disappear, and it turns out that with this blow he broke Sabato's mask, but the same giant stone. Urokodaki then appears and reveals that he was against Tanjiro's participation in the final selection from the beginning, as he didn't want him to die there. He feeds him a delicious dinner and gives him a protective, enchanted mask. In the morning, Tanjiro sets off for Mount Fujikasana and asks teacher Urokodaki to say hello to Makomo and Sabato. However, Urokodaki is greatly surprised as Tanjiro gives the names of his long-dead students. Next, Tanjiro arrives at Mount Fujikasane, where the twins are told the conditions of the final selection. He also meets the other contestants there. Now, in order for them all to pass the selection process, they must survive 7 days on this mountain. Then Tanjiro kills several demons with the blade Nishirin, which was given to him by Urokodaki. After that, he meets a giant demon that devours one of the participants of the selection. The demon tells about being imprisoned here by Urokodaki, and that he has already killed about 50 people, 13 of which were Urokodaki students. Seeing the mask on Tanjiro's head, he will count him as 14. Tajiro attacks the demon with fury, however, he loses concentration, knocking his breath away, for which he gets kicked in the head. After he regains consciousness, concentrates again, gets to the demon's head and chops off the demon's head with the first water style. Tanjiro feels the sadness of the vanishing demon. However, now the 14 spirits of the children have been given solace. At the end of the selections, only 5 contestants survive twin tells about the 10 ranks of hunters, after they assign each of the contestants a Kasugai Raven for communication and a Zenica Sparrow after each contestant chooses a type of ore to create their own Nishirin blade that will take 10 to 15 days to make. Tanjiro then returns to Urokodaki's house to meet a waking Nezuko there and Urokodaki, who is insanely happy to see Tanjiro alive. Urokodaki has assumed that Nezuko recovers her strength through sleep, so she doesn't need to kill anyone. 15 days later, Hagenosuke arrives to deliver Nishirin's blade to Tanjiro. He tells about the blade and also calls Tanjiro a child of the sun. In Tanjiro's hands, the blade turns an unusual black color, then the raven arrives and orders Tanjiro to hurry to the northwest where young girls disappear every night. This will be the first task for the Demon Slayer, Tanjiro. He changes into the uniform of the Demon Slayers, then Urokodaki tells about the properties of his uniform and his new black sword Nichirin, and also hands over a very light carry made for Nezuko. Tanjiro then finds a town. There they meet the injured Kozumi, whose girlfriend was stolen in the night. Kozumi shows the scene of the crime. There Tanjiro smells the trail of a demon after we are shown the girl who is stolen by the demon. Tanjiro sensed this demon, however, he could not see it. He decides to stick his sword in the place where the smell was the most, and eventually he manages to snatch the girl from the demon's clutches. It turns out that the demon is not alone. He has created 2 clones of himself. They show us Urokodaki's story about the first demon who has been around for over 1,000 years. His name is Mudzan Kibutsuji. He is the only one whose blood can turn a human into a demon. It also turns out that when Nezuko was sleeping in Urokodaki's house, he instilled in her that all humans are her family, and she now protects all humans. To defeat the demon, Tanjiro decides to go underground, leaving Nezuko to protect humans. However, Tanjiro is attacked with a 6-star whirlpool and slashes the demons. At this time, Nezuko fights against the 3rd demon. The demon even managed to cut her face, but appears Tanjiro and cuts off the demon's hands. After they interrogate him about Kibutsuji Mudzana, but the demon is not on a joke, scared and refused to tell anything. After the demon decides to attack for this Tanjiro, it will destroy. Then comes the Crow and gives a new mission to go to Tokyo, where the demon hides Tanjiro and Nezuko gets into a big city with a lot of people. There they buy udonu, while eating. Tanjiro smells the same demon odor he smelled when his family was killed, and immediately runs down its trail, which leads him to Kibutsuji Mudzan. At that point, the demon was pretending to be a human to divert attention away from himself. Kibutsuji Mudzana turns a nearby passing man into a demon. The converted demon bites his girlfriend. However, Tanjiro intervenes and rolls the demon to the ground. At this time, Kibutsuji Mudzana just walks away. Afterward, the enchanted blood flowers appear, and with them Tamaya and Yoshira looking like humans. They offer help to Tanjiro. Meanwhile, Kibutsuji Mudzana puts his family in a car and afterward kills 3 drunk people in an alley.
Tajiro and Nezuko go with Yoshiro to the house of the demon Dr. Tamaya. They go through the wall and find the house. Then Tamaya tells them that she has been able to change her body and Yoshiro's, so they no longer need to eat people. Tamaya tells them that there is a way to turn a demon back into a human, but first they need to find it. She says that Nezuko is an extremely rare case and asks to be allowed to study her blood. She also asks Tanjiro to get the blood of several demons close to Kibutsuji Mudzana. Meanwhile, Susamura and Yahaba find Tanjiro's footprints and break into the house. Susamurai throws his temamari, which he uses to rip Yoshiro's head off. Next, Susamurai grows 4 more arms, attacking with 6 temari already. Yoshida recovers during this time and then seals Tanjiro so he can see the temari movement arrows. Meanwhile, Nezuko goes to fight Ihaba and manages to distract him. This allows Tanjiro to cut all the Temari and chop off the demon Susamaru's hands. Tanjiro goes to fight Yahaba, while Yoshiro and Nezuka are left to fight Susamaru. Yahaba throws Tanjiro from side to side using arrows that are controlled by the eyes on his hands. Tanjiro has figured out how these arrows work. He attacks with a 2-form attack and blows Yahaba's head off. However, Yahaba's final attack manages to send out a large number of arrows, which starts throwing Tanjiro from side to side. Tanjiro, with the help of a large number of techniques, barely survives this attack. Meanwhile, Tamayo releases her blood, and spells Susamaru from her body arms burst out of her body, which tear her apart. It turns out that the only demon that can kill other demons is Kibutsuji Mudzana, or his blood, after a raven appears and tells them that the next building is to the south-east on the road. Tanjiro meets a whining Zenika. They find a house. Tanjiro smells blood. They find confused children who tell them how their brother was grabbed by a monster and dragged into a nearby house. They enter the house, but the children also go after them. After the monsters, everyone is separated. Tanjiro breaks up with the girl and Zenitsu stays with the boy. Zenitsu tries to escape from the house, but the demon changes the house, and instead of leaving, they find a room with a man in a boar mask named Inosuke Hashibayo, who starts breaking down the walls after the demon starts hitting his Suzume and the rooms start transforming again. Zenitsu and the boy are then found by another demon who begins to chase them. Zenitsu is frightened and faints, but then suddenly gets up using the breath of thunder and cuts off the demon's head, and then wakes up and thinks that the demon was destroyed by the boy meanwhile. Inosuke meets another demon and destroys it using the breath of the beast. Next, Tanjiro and the girl meet Kiyoshi, the children's older brother. Tanjiro medicines Urokadaki to wrap his wounds after Kiyoshi tells him that he was saved with the help of the demon's Suzume torn off. Next, Tanjiro goes in search of the demon. He finds it. It turns out to be a Kyogai demon that Kibutsuji Mudzan banished from the lower moons. After Tanjiro figures out how to work with the demon's Suzume and uses Style 9 to destroy it. He takes a blood sample and sends blood for Tomei through a cat from Yoshira. Tanjiro finds the children and does not go to the exit. At this time, Inosuke goes outside and notices Nezuka and decides to kill the demon. However, Zenitsu stands up to defend the crates. Inosuke begins to beat him. Tanjiro appears and with a kick to his stomach, Inosuke breaks several of his ribs. However, Inosuke decides to continue the fight. Tanjiro then throws Inosuke off with a blow to the head and the restless Inosuke faints. Then a crow appears asking everyone to come down from the mountain to follow him. Next, Tanjiro Zenitsu Inosuke comes to a house with wisteria painted on it, from which the grandmother comes out. She feeds them, changes their clothes and makes them a bed to rest in, and also brings them doctors. Next, Zenitsu asks Tanjiro why he is carrying a demon. Tanjiro introduces Zenika to Nezuka, and Zenika falls in love with her. He orders all three to go to the northeast of the mountain Nakaduma. At the foot of the mountain, they find a demon hunter Murata, who is dragged by threads into the mountain after Zenitsu for his cowardice lags behind Tanjiro and Inosuke, and they meanwhile find Murata. He tells them that there were 10 hunters, and when they climbed the mountain, they started cutting each other. Meanwhile, the head of the hunters, Kagaya Yuboyashiki, decides to send 2 hunters of the highest rank, Hashira Tamioka and Shinobu, to help the mountain. Further on, the guys are attacked by controlled hunters. Tanjiro notices the threads that control them. They cut them. However, this doesn't help further. Inosuke uses the breath of the beasts to find the demon that is controlling everyone. Murata decides to stay and try to save the controlled people, and Tanjiro and Inosuke go after the demon. However, they encounter more controlled hunters along the way. Tanjiro comes up with a way to disarm them. They start throwing them on tree branches and thus immobilize them. The demon decides to use her trump card. She taunts the controlled headless giant Inosuke and Tanjiro. Combine their attacks, chopping the giant into pieces after Tanjiro cuts off the demon's head. However, the demon herself wanted to get freedom by dying. And she also warns that further they are waiting for the demon one of the 12 lower moons. Meanwhile, Zenitsu meets a spider demon. However, the spider infects him with poison, and in 30 minutes Zenitsu must turn into a spider. Next, we are shown memories of Zenitsu where he is trained by his teacher, and how sitting in a tree he is struck by lightning. From the flashbacks, we learn that Zenitsu never had parents, and that what he wanted most in life was to change and be a decent human being. But in real time, he loses consciousness, and then his alter ego turns on, and using one style of thunder breath, he starts moving around the demon like lightning and cuts off his head. However, he is paralyzed by the poison, but he tries to use breathing techniques to slow it down. Tanjiro, seeing the lightning, decides to go to the place, but the demon's father appears and attacks them. At this time, Tamioku and Shinobu are on the mountain. Tamioku goes to help Inosuke and Tanjiro, and Shinobu goes to help Knights. She quickly finds him and injects him with an antidote. Meanwhile, Tanjiro and Inosuke are attacked by their father's demon, however they are unable to cut through it. Tanjiro cuts down a tree which crushes the demon. Afterward, he is going to use 10-style water breathing. However, the demon grabs the tree, throwing Tanjiro a couple hundred meters away.
Then Inosuke tries to figure out how he can cut down a strong demon. He jams one sword into the demon's arm, and with the second sword he kills and cuts off the demon's arm, and the demon starts to run away from him, and then the demon transforms and becomes even stronger, and Inosuke attacks the demon. However, his swords break and the demon grabs Inosuke's head as well and starts to squeeze it. However, Tamioku appears, cuts off the demon's hands, and after destroying it, Tamioku decides to tie up the rampaging Inosuke as he is seriously injured and could do more damage to himself. Meanwhile, the reclined Tanjiro meets two demons, Rui and his sister. Rui promises to cut Tanjiro slowly to pieces for questioning his life principles. After Tanjiro decides to attack the demon, however, the demon's super strong threads cut through his sword, and then it turns out that the demon's body is many times stronger than his threads. Rui creates a web and decides to cut Tanjiro, but Nezuka appears and protects him with her body. After Rui cuts his sister demon and orders her to kill everyone left on the mountain. Next, the demon Rui offers to trade Tanji's life for Nezuka to be his sister. He also informs her that he is 5 of the 12 lower moons. He then uses a thread to catch Nezuka and suspends her above the ground. Next, Rui uses the power of his blood, and his thread turns blood red. At this time, Tanjiro remembers his father, where he did a dance with the god of fire, and where he told Tanjiro about the breath. Tanjiro decides to use the breath and uses it to cut the red thread and get close to the demon. At this time, Nezuko wakes up and uses the blood blast. The art of her demon blood, she burns the remaining threads and also charges the Tanja sword, and it cuts off the demon's head Esiri. However, the demon is not dead. It seems that Roy managed to cut off his own head before Tanjie did, and thus survived his blow. Roy decides to cut the tangerine and Nezuka. However, Tamioku appears, uses 11-style water breathing, cuts all the threads, and then cuts off Rui's head. Meanwhile, Shinobu finds the demon's sister and uses the butterfly dance to kill her with poison from the wisteria. However, Tamioku stands up in defense of the Nonzunque and deflects her blow after Tamioku suggests Tanjiro to grab Nezuko and run away from here. Tanjiro is also attacked with Soyurikan-R, another demon hunter who tries to kill the non-Zanku. Nezuko shrinks and tries to run away from her. Meanwhile, Tamioku twists Shinobu Yu next. A raven appears and informs to take Tanjiro and Nezuka to the demon hunter headquarters. Wastwood, a sweep squad appears and only rescues any remaining surviving hunters. Next, Tanjiro and Nezuka are taken to the headquarters where they face all the Hashira who will be judging them, and also punishment awaits Tamika. However, that is left for later. Shinobu asks Tanjiro to tell them a story about why he is traveling with a demon. He tells them that this is his sister and she did not eat people, and that she can not harm anyone. Present Hashiras decide to wait for Mr. Hagai Ubiyashaki and then already make a verdict. Then appears Shinazugawa, another Hashira. He grabs the box, decides to check the words of Tanjiro. He stabs Nezuka with his sword. Then Tanjiro jumps up and hits Shinazugawa with his head. They both fall down. After staying to Mr. Ubiyashishi, all bow down to him. Next, each Hasha begins to express their opinion, but almost everyone votes in favor of punishing Tanji and Tomioki. Uboyashi offers to read a letter from Urokodaki asking that Tanjiro be allowed to travel with Nezuko, and Nezuko will kill or eat a human. Then Urokodaki, Tamioki, and Tanjiro argue their bellies out. Also, Uboyashi told about Tanjiro being met by Kibutsuji Muzan. Next, Shinozugawa suggests to check Nezuko. He carries the box with Nezuko. The shadow makes a cut on his hand and also pierces it several times. For Nezuko to come out, Nezuko comes out of the box. At this point, Tanjiro gets to rip the ropes on his hands and run up to the house. Gave us our show Nezuko's flashbacks, after which she turns away from the blood restraints. Uboyashi suggests Tanjiro and Nezu a task they need to kill all 12 demon moons. After that, are recognized by absolutely all the Hashers. Next, Tanjiro and Nezuko are taken to Shinobu Manor. However, Tanjiro returns to bash Shinozugawa's forehead once more. In the manor, they meet Tsuri Kanayo as well as Zenitsu, whose arms and legs have shrunk after being partially transformed into a spider. They also find Inosuke, who has injured his throat after releasing Nezuko from the box, who can now live at the estate. Next, we are shown a meeting of the Hashira. Uboyashi reports that the number of incidents with demons has increased dramatically, but does not discuss the newcomers and discusses Tanjiro. Uboyashi realizes that Kibutsuji Muzan has been trying to get rid of all the demon hunters with more force lately. He goes on to thank everyone for their success. He is happy that the strongest team is back together, namely Uzei Aitenjin, Shinjiro Rengoku, Shinobu Kocho, Mitsuri Kanroji, Muichiro Takito, Himejima Gome, Shinazugawa Sanemi, Obanai Igura, Tomioka Gi. Next we are shown Rengoku, who goes on a mission most likely to be related to one of the demons of the 12 moons. After the hospital, Murata's survivor comes in. He tells the boys about what happened at the Hashira meeting and that he was interrogated there. Shinobu shows up and suggests that they start their recovery training. Inosuke and Tanjiro start training, first to restore their body flexibility. Zenitsu and Inosuke stop going to training because they keep losing, and Tanjiro tries to figure out how he can win with Tsuri Kanao. Next, the girls tell him about the secret of maintaining full concentration of breath all day long. Then this ability has a very strong effect. Then the girls help Tanjiro again and bring him pumpkins to practice on. They need to be burst with the breath. After 15 days, he is a little advanced in practicing breathing. He meets Shinobu, who tells him about his dream. She wants to find a way not to kill demons, but to be friends with them, which is why she invited him and Nezuko to her estate. After Tanjiro tries to burst a pumpkin and succeeds. Next, he moves on to a new level where he has to burst a giant pumpkin. Meanwhile, Zenith and Inosuke go to Shinobu to find out about Tanjiro's training. Shinobu motivates them after Tanjiro tells them about his training, and they start training hard. Next, Hagenosuke appears and tries to slash Tanjiro for breaking his sword. After Inosuke gets his new blades and begins to make them serrated, then weighs down the master. The training did not go in vain. Tanjiro's speed increased many times over, and he was able to defeat Kanao's Sallows. Shinobu recognizes that Tanjiro is already healthy, and he is already allowed to begin his task. Tanjiro also tries to ask her about the flame breath, but she sends him to Rengoku for help. Next, we are shown the demons on the train after showing the events of a few months ago, where Kibutsuji Muzan summoned 6 lower demon moons to disband and kill them. However, one demon he keeps alive and enhances it with his blood to kill the hunter Hashiro and the hunter who wears the Hanafuda earrings, which is exactly the same demon that was on the train. Meanwhile, Raven gives a new assignment to Tanjiro and the guys they need to solve the disappearing people on the endless train where they have to join Rengoku. It turns out that Tanjiro was recommended by Shinobu for this assignment. She also told Uboyashi about Tanjiro's flame breaths to Rengoku. Tanjiro then helps Kanao hear his heart. After Tanjiro and Inosuke destroy the giant pumpkins, we are shown a conversation between Tamioka and Tanjiro, where Tanjiro thanks him for standing up for him and Nezuko. After they go on a mission, they find a train and Inosuke decides to attack the train, and the police start chasing them. Then the train starts moving. They jump into it on the fly, where Kyojuro, Rengoku, and the demon are waiting for them. End of Season 1.